No, I don't.
On the screen. Is there a blue light there?
No blue lights out here. No. No behind.
There we go. No, we're live. Oh,
Two
oh no, it's
ticks.
just
Reboot.
Hello, Debbie.
reboot.
I did see your pictures before, but I've now just got the big W on the screen.
Yeah.
There
We go.
Oh, there we go. Welcome.
Right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. This is a general meeting of the Waipuna Halswell-Hornby-Riccarton Community Board. The meeting is live streamed and recordings will be available on the Community Board's YouTube channel. If you're sitting in the public gallery, thank you for attending. We welcome your interest in our discussions. Please note that the public gallery should remain quiet during the meeting. Toilets are located outside in the corridor, outside the meeting room. And in case of an emergency, please exit by the door at the back of the room. And there are 2 staircases to exit the building. Please follow staff directions in the case of an emergency. And now we go into our karakia. Pakataka te hau ki te uru, pakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia makina kina ki uta, kia matata ki toa, e ia ana te atakura, e tio, e hoka, e hahuna, te Laura. Thank you. Now, apologies. We have Debbie Mora on Zoom, and Councillor Tyler Harrison Hunt will be coming in shortly. And no other apologies. That's right. No, I haven't heard from him.
In 4 years now.
Right. And so declarations of interest. Does anybody have anything to declare?
Yep, I've got a declaration of interest regards to item 12, with the Hornby Presbyterian Community Church. I'm a member of that. So I'll probably sit back and not partake in that decision.
Yes. It used to be if you were an officiating member, but it's up to you.
That's safe enough.
Yeah.
Declared.
Okay, noted. Thank you. Now, confirmation of previous minutes. I move that the minutes of the Waipuna Halswell-Hornby-Riccarton Community Board meeting held on Thursday, 14th of November, 2024 be confirmed. Do I have a seconder? Yeah, Andre. Thank you. And all good. Right, we move on to the public forum. Do we have Drusilla here yet? No? So we'll have Daryl. Please come forward. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, elected members. I am Daryl Hall, new General Manager of the Chumley Children's Centre in Governor's Bay.
Oh.
I stayed myself 3 times in the 1970s. For you today as representatives of the Community Board area, because I want to thank the people, volunteers, businesses and donors from the West for their support of Chumley children. Chumley is a service that belongs to the people of Canterbury and draws support throughout Canterbury. We provide a free short-term planned and emergency respite care for tamariki aged 5 to 12. We've provided this service for 100 years next March. The base service is 8 visits for 3 days in a 12-month period while the issue persists. The particular reason why I'm here is that when I started, I did an analysis of the children that come to Chumley by ward for Christchurch. And for all other metropolitan community boards, children come from 9 or 10 schools. But from this community board, it's only 3. So we've got a job to better communicate to the people of the West that we are a are a free service for them, and partly that's through you as well, because people do come to you with all sorts of issues, whether they are within your delegations or not. So importantly, families can self-refer. You don't need to come through a government agency or a social worker. They can check in with us and see if they're eligible to access the service. So what happens is that the children stay with us in the time of family crisis. It could be a solo parent who's going through a period of illness that needs some time. A few grandparents who are looking after kids these days just need a bit of rest, or it could be a mental health issue that the family needs their children to spend a little bit of time with us. And we work in with the schools, so the schooling progress is maintained. If you like, we are a service that manages issues rather than allows them to be escalated at the top of the cliff, rather than the bottom trying to pick up the pieces. Children get 24/7 support. It's quite structured, social interactions, learning activities. It's good basics for all children, really. We cost around $3 million a year, with 20% of that from central government, and the rest is from the donors, the businesses that I talked about before, including local ones here who drive their cars, Island Toyota. So lastly, through you, the issue I've got is that we don't communicate well enough with your people. And so I want to remind all the people of this community board area that we are a free service for them, as we are for all of Canterbury. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
All right. So thank you, Daryl. That was really enlightening to find out about Chumley. I had questions, Helen, and then Hank.
It used to be, when I was more connected with it, it was for children to stay away from their home. Is that still what you're doing? Or is it just children go for a few days and go home at night?
Yeah, the model when I went there in the 70s, we stayed for weeks on end.
Yes.
But the model now is that they go for multiple visits through the year,
Oh, I see.
3 days at a time, because it works better with the school system. So
Okay.
we're very much aware that the child's school is their primary education source.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're working with them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Hank, and then Mark.
How busy are you? Are you overrun with kids? Or, I mean, or I ask that because it's no good us suggesting to a parent to contact you
Yeah.
if you were going to come back and say, look, we've got to wait in this 2 years.
It's chicken egg, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're blessed rather than overrun. But we have about a 3-month waiting list,
Okay.
which isn't too bad. And so it's, as I say, a lot of it's planned. So if the parents get an opportunity to plan for them to have some respite, it's good service for them.
Okay.
Mark?
Thank you, Daryl. Very valuable to connect. Are you able offline to perhaps update us as to which schools in our West area are involved and which ones we can then target?
Yeah, I thought about that, and I wonder that I might not, because the numbers of children are so few, and we're talking about primary schools with such a small role, that while it probably isn't an issue, I'd rather just not run the risk.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
You know what I mean?
Yep, understandable. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you.
Daryl. Next, we have David Hope, Halswell Residents Association Treasurer, and Lucy Love, local resident, to address the board regarding play spaces in Halswell. Welcome.
Kia ora, thank you for having us. My name is Lucy Love, and I have been a resident of Halswell for 7 years, and I'm a mother of 2. I live near the quarry and frequent it often, and we love the space, and we notice that there are lots of people using it: runners, walkers, the dog park, access to the mountain bike track. There's a cafe, a park run, but what we are lacking in that space is a playground for our young children. I'm a believer of don't complain and then not follow through with any action. So that's why I'm here. I would love a playground there. I go and we explore the pond and all the natural aspects. There's only so much a 2-year-old is interested in that, and then we head home. And I'd love to stay there longer, and a playground would allow us to do that. So I approached Andre and the Halswell Residents Association where we discussed this back in November, and we came up with just to put out a survey, and we put that on the community Facebook page and the Halswell Mums and Bubs, where we had overwhelming responses.
Yeah. Okay, so thanks, Lucy. So I think most of you know that my name is David Hawke, so I'm the treasurer of the Halswell Residents Association, and I'm here when Lucy brought the issue to us. Adele Gerards, our secretary, was away, and so I picked it up. And there's not time pressure, but we don't want to be sitting around filling in time. So I've carried this issue forward to this point, and so that's why you're hearing from me today. So Lucy came to our meeting on the 4th of November, and as she's just explained, that's the issue that we have with Halswell Quarry Park is that it's an amazing place, but it doesn't really cater as well as it might for parents and caregivers with young children. So as Lucy's just said, we decided to run a survey on the Facebook page. So we uploaded it on the Friday of show weekend. So we were astonished. We had 220 responses in the twinkling of an eye. So there's obviously a lot of engagement in this topic. And so anyway, I don't know whether you all hang out for the Halswell Residents Association minutes or...
Absolutely.
We'll try and do it.
Anyway, we put out the results in the minutes from our 25th of November meeting, but so there are some key points that came through from that, just to remind you, 220 responses. Importance of play areas for caregivers to meet and get to know others. Another thing that came through really strongly is that play areas should be able to be used by children with compromised access. So that hasn't been uniform across the network. Another thing that was quite interesting is that caregivers with taking children to play areas, they get around. But there are 3 standout destinations. So firstly is Halswell Domain next to the Model Engineers, People's Local Park, and then Margaret Mahey in the central city. There was a briefing you received at about the same time we were running our survey, and it was about establishing a play area at Quarry View Park. Basically, our survey results strongly support the proposal you heard, but we think that there is more than that. In particular, the question of regional parks and local parks. They're not the same thing. They are complementary destinations. So really important here to understand that most caregivers are going to more than one play area, and they're not just going to their local park for all sorts of reasons. So 2/3 of respondents, 67%, agreed or strongly agreed that consideration should be given to attaching play areas to all open spaces. So there's this real appetite for play spaces, a diversity of play spaces. However, something that you will be aware of is that there's strong local sensitivity about new uses at Halswell Quarry Park. I don't know that many in this board were around at the time that was, certainly not on the board, at the time that park was established. But hang on. Yeah, so locals can get pretty worked up if they feel the City Council is shoving inappropriate uses into their special place. And the one that sticks in our mind would be the sister city discussion.
I remember that.
Yeah, so some of you might not know what I'm talking about, but actually when City Council decided to put sister city installations in Halswell Quarry Park, many of the locals were not happy. So, but our survey showed that a play area at Halswell Quarry would be acceptable if it reinforced the natural and heritage values of the park. So we're not sticking in something that has got nothing to do with the location. I also remind you that as a board, you've been strongly supportive of our association's efforts to broaden the heritage narrative that people think about for Halswell. So we think that a play area at Halswell Quarry Park would be a really good way of reinforcing natural and heritage values that lay behind the vision of the folk who got it going 25 years ago. So that's really, really important. We think it would tie in well with what those original people had in mind. And one of those people is actually remembered in a road name that you accepted in Riverstone. So Jack Rogers Road. Jack, I'm sure you remember every single road that you'll approve at this board. And the justification there too. But Jack Rogers was one of the key people behind the establishment and the vision that led to Halswell Quarry Park. So inevitably, as an association, we always bring things for you to do. And so what we would like you to do is, we wonder if someone from your Parks and Recreation team might come along to one of our public meetings and help us and our community work through the issues.
It's a good idea.
And it's, as an aside, it's worth pointing out, there is a management plan, but it's 2009, so it's 15 years old pre-earthquake. So it's helpful, but not that helpful. Anyway, thanks for listening. Kia ora.
All right, thank you, David. We have just room for, you have a question? Yeah, we've got Debbie who has a question. Go ahead, Debbie.
Yeah, hi. Thanks very much for that deputation. Really hear what you're saying, and it has come to our board several times before on this matter. So I'm just wondering, Marie, and I'm not sure if David and Lucy were aware that we had investigated and we had a response back from council. And yes, you're right, David. The concerning factor is the natural and heritage side of it. So the report, I recollect saying something along the lines of it wanting to keep it to as natural as possible from the original onset of the park, something along those lines. But I hear what you're saying, so I'm just wondering, Marie, are we able to dig that report out? It was about 2 to 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
All right, we'll get staff to look into it and circulate it to the board.
Thank you. And thanks again for coming in. Really appreciate it.
I can't quite recall. It's good to get
Okay,
a copy.
Mark?
Could I just ask one quick question? Have you had any thought about whereabouts in the quarry park you might like something?
Near trees.
Yeah,
There's
trees.
plenty of them.
Yeah.
And I was thinking this the other day, where the cherry blossom garden is, there's the path up to the quarry. If you're going up the left side of the quarry rim, and there's a toilet facility, which is often quite important with young children.
Absolutely.
So I would think there could be a good space. Often it is also sloping, and so it's not necessarily like the best picnicking area, but then it's got the trees for that as well. So that could be one as well. But there are plenty.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, David and Lucy. All right,
Brilliant.
thank you so much. And next we have Mr. Barry Harcourt, who will speak to us about cycles on footpaths, particularly on Island Road, I believe. Welcome, Barry.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to speak here. About 2 years ago, I contacted Christchurch Council asking that they remove the permission for cyclists to ride on the footpath on Island Road between Roundtree Street and Maidstone Road. Basically, it runs from the corner shop right through past Island Fields, right to the corner. My reasoning for this was that beside the footpath was a cycle lane. In fact, on the other side of the road, there was also a cycle lane. And now the whole of Island Road has been completed with cycle lanes. The council stated that it was a shared cycleway designated as such many years ago. And if I recall right, that was something to do with being able to bike from the sea through to somewhere on the other side of Christchurch and perhaps further. After some to and fro, I made a formal request for all the information relating to the issue. The information referred to a plan. I requested a copy of the plan, and I was told that there was no written plan.
There must be.
And no timeline. I got that by email. So with my gander up a little bit, I met with Councillor McDonald recently, and he suggested channeling the matter through your board. I often walk along that stretch of road, so I'm encountering cyclists almost every time. I've asked many of them to please go on the cycleways, and not one person has done so. I've explained it to them to avoid possible collision and injury. And recently 2 people said to me, "So what?" Yes, that indicates what their attitude is. Recently, in September, there was a letter to the newspaper from a G. Gudsell of Ireland. I nearly got bowled over on Thursday afternoon by 2 cyclists biking on the pedestrian walkway on Ilam Road. Disappointing, as there are cycleways on both sides of Ilam Road. So what I'm asking for is the support of your board that this permission to regard this as a shared cycleway be cancelled, and that cyclists be put where they should be on the cycleways.
Are you?
And that's all I've got to say.
I've got some questions from
Thank you.
Helen.
Yes. In talking to council staff, have you any idea if they can make the cyclists use the cycleway? Have you got any idea of sort of the law around it? I mean, I haven't.
It's pretty straightforward. For some reason, it's marked as a shared path on the
so
path as well as the
as
bike
well
lane.
as-
So
So it's just
markings.
taking away
It
that.
says you can choose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So currently they're not breaking any rules because it's literally marked.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
shared
they're
path.
not
The issue
breaking
here is the
any
marking on the.
So if you took away the marking,
Yeah.
Yeah.
would you change the behaviour?
You would, yeah.
There's probably some legal process around removing those
There will be,
markings.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when you've accosted them, have they said why they don't want to use the actual cycleway? I would have thought that's a lot
We're
safer.
allowed to.
Yeah.
Just because I love
It says they can.
Yeah.
No, I can understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they haven't said, look, I don't want to use the cycleway because I feel concerned or.
No, I think it is probably because for a number of years, people have used it.
Oh, I haven't.
And
Okay.
All right.
So, Andre.
Thank you, Helen. Andre, you still have a question?
Oh, no, it's just
You're
to
good.
clarify, it's around the markings.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mark.
Yep, I'm just going to suggest, you probably already picked this up, Bailey, could we refer that to transport staff to review that?
Specific Transport staff. Okay, we will do that. And
yeah, well, I've asked the transport staff for over 2 years.
Oh, okay.
We'll see if it
And
gets a
basically, I've
response.
got nowhere.
we'll see
Yes,
if we can do
can.
something from this end,
Yes,
from the board.
Otherwise, it may well, and I mean, there are other people I know who are of this view too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're getting a bit upset about it.
yeah.
Is that a cycleway kept reasonably clean? Would the cars park on it?
Oh, no.
No.
You have a cycleway, the usual width seems to be about as wide as this table. And then there is a block of concrete
Oh,
with
okay, yeah, I know. Sorry. I haven't
trees
seen it.
growing in it, which is about this wide. And then you've got a little space on the road for the motorists.
Yes. It's certainly a very obvious cycle path.
Very, very obvious. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Tyler's got a question.
G'day. It sounds like it's taken a few years to get elevated. I know the board's going to take to it, but I'm pretty keen to take it on too. So it shouldn't be an issue. And there will be, I've had this before, particularly on Hagley Ave. So I'm pretty keen to see how we can elevate it. So I'm happy to take that on too.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I can't see why it hasn't been done by now, as part of the, the project to do the cycleways.
Yeah, we'll keep tab on this and we'll keep you informed. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Larry.
Thank you very much.
Right. Okay. Do we have Matt Stewart around?
Yeah.
Oh, Matt's here to speak to us about safety improvements on Dunbar's Road. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
Right. You know everybody?
I only know.
All right. So we got Andre and Marie Halswell, and Helen.
Helen Broughton.
Yeah, from Hornby.
Yeah.
Sarah Hornby.
And Mark Peters from Hornby.
And we've got on Zoom. We've got people on Zoom
Paula from Riccarton.
and Debbie
Debbie Moore
from Halswell.
from Horswell Community Board.
Right. All right. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Mentioned I'm Matt Stewart. I'm dad to 4-year-old Hunter and 6-year-old Jameson. We live in Aidenfield and we bike, scoot, or walk to Best Start in Aidenfield preschool and then Oakland school. And I was through suggested from Andre, I presented to the district, the long-term draft. So that was 7 months ago. So just bringing it forward to the community board and kind of seeing where things are at. So yeah, so Jameson started school last year, and my wife and I were very shocked to find out that a major road 1 block away from a primary school had no signage or pedestrian crossing. Yeah, we're very no signage to warn the drivers of the nearby school. So a brief overview of Oakland school zone. You all well know about where it's at. It's Oakland's primary school year 1 to 8 with a roll of about 630 students. It's located just north of Halswell. So zooming in closer, we can see that Dunbar's Road effectively divides the zone in half, with 35 to 40% of the zone on the north side of Dunbar's. So zooming in a bit closer, the school has 4 entry points, 1 on each side of the square footprint. Currently, there are some suggested pedestrian crossings. It's not painted. It says recommended crossing zones. So what this means is the cars might stop, but they might not, and it's maybe probably even arguably creating a more dangerous situation than than not having them at all. But for Dunbar's Road, it's very dangerous, especially very busy, especially during drop-off and pickup times. It's a 50K zone. The drivers are often driving much faster than that, with no safe crossing points. So kids coming from Aidenfield, you have 2 options: coming through Marcella Gardens onto Dunbar's Road, and then down the side street onto Cobra Street. Then the other is down McMahon and on Hendy Street and then Harrow Street. So Dunbar roundabout, as you can see, there's a island in the middle, which again is probably creating maybe a bit more danger than the perceived safety. It's a very tight roundabout. Drivers often coming in quite quickly, no marking, and very poor line of sight. Going down further on Dunbar's Road, it's a straightaway, which is great for your line of sight, but there's no island, no crossing. It's a very steady flow of traffic. So this is in the morning time. And as you come around here, this is kind of before the rush picks up. So there's not many cars at the moment. But if we put some no parking there each side of where the school entrance is, it would create a much safer situation. So just to put in perspective what I'm talking about here is this is coming out of school yesterday. So we're coming out of school, very poor visibility here. Luckily, this is probably a parent that's coming down, driving slowly. If they're driving the speed limit, it would be bit more danger. So again, if we had the no parking there, much safer. The local police officer escorting his kids across. So this is probably a bit more concerning here on Dunbar's. The it's often busier than this, but we're waiting multiple minutes to find it's the car
On a truck.
tried to go to. So it's, yeah, to leave this judgment to a child, very few parents feel comfortable doing that. So they're either driving their kids or they're walking their even older kids to school. There's multiple 10-year-old and plus that are still walk to school. So what I'm talking about, or what I'm proposing, so through Aidenfield, there's kind of a thoroughfare, pedestrian thoroughfare. If we come through Marcella Gardens there, or through Marcella Reserve and the gardens, coming across there, if we had a pedestrian crossing on Dunbars, it was ideally signaled pedestrian crossing, the kids could get safely across there, go around the corner onto Cobra Street, and with some marking on Cobra Street with no parking in that zone, it really created a much safer entry and route for the kids going to school. So what could be done? Kids, as I mentioned, kids need a safe route to school for the Aidenfield kids, getting that pedestrian crossing across Dunbars Road and Cobra Street. Some school zone signs on Dunbar Street to warn the drivers that they're 1 block away from a school. No parking on the Cobra Street entrance. And another thing that could happen is, as well as traffic engineers auditing the area for other changes where we have very poor visibility, short line of sight, such as here on Bibiana Street, where I condemn the bus driver for realizing that there's a real safety concern. Unfortunately, he's just probably thinking about his bus, so he puts the safety cones there. So you can imagine coming around that 50K an hour, kid walks out, what kind of line of sight do you have? So potentially on this one, limiting the parking there, maybe no parking on the curb, and definitely no parking for oversized vehicles that create this. A couple months ago, we had an oversized bus like that parked there for probably 10 days. So I guess, and just to wrap it up with the current status, so coming from Oakland schools, from this school desk there, they said that the school kids identified a number of road safety issues, and Dunbars was one of the major areas of concern. There's been multiple near misses. I've personally seen near misses this year. Apparently, as one of the Oakland school teachers was knocked off their bike on Dunbars a few years ago, which council was notified. Oakland school said they fully support that safe crossing on Dunbars, and that a traffic engineer from council came by to talk to him to discuss that safe crossing. And Andre also had informed me that traffic engineers has assessed the crossing, and by the end of January, they're hoping to present the options for safe crossing. So, yeah, and in conclusion, I just wanted to bring you up to speed with the situation. I'm hoping the council can fast track these school safety issues, and ideally that we can see it completed next year. And with the full support of the Oakland school for the crossing on Dunbars, hopefully we have the momentum to continue this the safe routes to school for school children.
All right. Thank you, Matt. I have a question from Andre.
Yeah, it's one of the things. So just to clarify, I haven't been given a specific time frame, just early in the new year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in short, the fact that Aidenfield was built around 20 years ago, there's never been any form of crossing point on Dunbars Road. Yeah, it's nothing short of a disgrace. It's absolutely nuts. And board members would have heard me harping on about this for the last 2-3 years, quite frequently. So to have a resident come and actually show us the guts of it is going to be hugely helpful for some context before any options come to us. So thank you very much for bringing it. And hopefully we can start looking at options very early in the new year, which will need to be consulted on as well to make sure that it's all marrying up with what the needs are.
Yeah.
All right. We're running out of time. We are going to refer to staff and check on the status of this.
So we'll get an update on Dunbars. And then Cobra was raised at the last meeting as well, so we can get an update on the speed count, traffic counts.
Yeah. And the long-term plan amendment I put forward also made mention of End Zone Street.
Yeah, okay. All right. Cool. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
So we don't have Drusilla around? No, not Drusilla. Right, so we move on to deputations. Toby, you let Toby know? Yes, that's right. First, we've got Ainsley Walter. You can please come forward. Ainsley is here to address us about the Upper Riccarton War Memorial Park Development Report. Welcome, Ainsley. Right.
Yep, so I'm Ainsley Walter from the library, the War Memorial Library. And our library was built in 1919 with help from Lady Byron and the community, serving as a library for adults and then a second library for the children, much lived by them. Also, it was used for many other services as a memorial to our local, and also to a memorial to our local sons who didn't return from the wars. We thank you very much for saving all our historic pieces of history in the proposed park. I think that's a brilliant idea and much surprise to me and others. A mural of a field of poppies with a soldier reading or holding a book would be great, as the city ones are outstanding, and I'd love to see something like that on that blank white wall. Maybe extra funding towards things like that could come from nearby business owners or community, as they enjoy the seating and the sun as they used to. We would really like to have a soft double pink spraying cherry tree. I think it's called Sakura or some name like that. It's one that like that, to replace our memorial tree that where are we? Replace our memorial tree and represent love and peace would be great also. I've forgotten what the name of the park was, but Riccarton Memorial Park sounds great to us and the rest of my committee. Could we have one original seat with remembering all volunteers on a plaque? And that covers everyone from 1919 to the end. I will pay for the plaque if it can't be funded. We miss our buildings. However, I am sure the pocket park will be equally loved and used. Thank you for your support and help.
All right. Thank you, Ainsley. Any questions? Mark? Oh, Tyler?
Ainsley, I just wanted to firstly acknowledge all of the work that you've done over the years. And when I visited before the Pocket Park was, well, actually the Memorial Library was soon to be demolished, I had a tour of all of your amazing exhibits. And I'd really like to ask some questions around the plaques. I do realize that there will be plaques that are going to be put into the Memorial Park in itself. So just to be clear, you want to have a plaque that remembers the volunteers from the early 1900s to now?
I'm just talking about a small plaque like they put on a coffin.
Yes.
Just a wee thing on one of the seats.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
And you,
yeah,
I see what you mean.
Yes, and by doing that, we're covering all volunteers.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
just one or two, because it's a team.
Absolutely.
That's great. And I'll ask staff about that too. I'm sure that'll be absolutely fine. I'm sure, Toby. The next one is around the cherry tree. So are you talking about a cherry tree? The cherry blossom tree, sorry. Is it the ones that are sort of like on Hagley Ave there?
Yes, that sort of thing, but a double pink. It's one I had at home. It was a double pink sort of spraying out one.
Was a weeping one that sort of falls down.
No, it sort of goes like
Right, but like that, okay, yeah, it's quite a difference. Yeah.
Got one on my lawn actually. It's lovely.
But that would represent peace and love, which is what our ethos is in that library.
It's really nice. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we can make something work for sure. And I'll be asking staff questions about that when it comes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Ainsley.
Yes, I think
there's one more question.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the tree. So you're wanting it in the middle of the area, or are you wanting it
I think in the middle.
in the middle?
Just to replace, we had our memorial tree,
Okay.
which was to be trimmed, and
Yes,
they got cut down totally.
Okay.
Much to a lot of people's disappointments. So I just would like to see something like that replace it.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ainsley.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Right, now we move on to another deputation on the Quarry View Urban Forest Planting Plan. Lindsay Welsh, welcome. If you can please come forward.
Thank you. We moved into Spalling Road just under 2 years ago, and I have to say the reserve there is fantastic. We came from a very big 5-bedroom, 4-car garage home, and I honestly didn't think I would adjust to a 200 square house on a 400 square section, but we just love it. My biggest concern is during the event of buying this new build house, I was putting a cover on my caravan in Akaraa 20 months ago, and I fell off the ladder, and I haven't been able to walk properly since, and I am totally scrutinised and banned from getting up ladders to clean gutters out. This house has had the gutters cleaned out twice by professionals because of the trees and the drops that they're doing. We had it done 2 weeks ago, and already we've got muck coming into our gutters and onto our roof. I hear a ping every now and again of a branch dropping, and all I'm asking is, and the council was very good when we moved in, they did some chopping around our area so we could see what we wanted to see, which was a lovely park, the people walking the dogs and everything, and it's not an impact on our privacy at all. But the poplar trees are a hazard. I'm surprised they were actually left there before the subdivision was created, because they're very tall and they don't swing like that in the wind. They swing like that in the wind. And at my last house in Kennedy's Bush Road, I had a tree fall over for no reason at all. Thank goodness didn't go anywhere near our neighbour or ourselves, but that was just from moisture in the ground. And that is a site of outside my patio, and those trees are very, very tall. It's lovely. We'd love to keep the green. All we're asking is, can we have the poplars removed or at least cut in half for safety purposes? We're in a world now, and the council is very pro health and safety. This is not looking at health and safety in any way whatsoever. And I have so many neighbours concerned about, for the winds that we're getting nowadays, when is one of those going to land on one of our lovely homes? Thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you, Lindsay. A question from Helen.
Yes, I didn't quite catch which park you're close to.
It's the one on the, I don't know what it's called, but it's a reserve that backs onto Spalling Road in Halswell
in
Quarry.
Halswell Quarry.
Yes.
And
No, no,
we
not-
had
not-
an issue in Riccarton a few years ago with poplars,
Yes.
and they came down eventually because a staff member went and looked at them and said it's dangerous.
Yes.
So have you had a staff member out saying anything at all?
Yes, I have.
And what's
everyone that's been out there has talked to me, has said, can't understand why they're still here.
So Helen, this is regarding item 8
I know,
in the agenda.
Yeah.
Right,
You
okay.
know, the green's lovely and, you know, the view out there is lovely. The only concern we've had there in the 20+ months is I had a motorbike out there one day and they don't make them very quiet, do they? So I gave him about 10-15 minutes of zipping up and down. Then I went out to him and very politely with a smile on my face, I said, would you mind doing that at a time when our kids are not asleep? And we had grandchildren there at the time. And he said, oh, what's a good time? I said, I'm not too sure, but middle of the day would be better than 4:30, 5 o'clock at night. Haven't seen him since. So,
Thank you.
He's been very respectful.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. No more questions? Right. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Great.
Thank you.
Would you like us to pass those photos around?
Yes,
to-
Yeah.
You're welcome to stay until we discuss
Well,
it
unfortunately, my
later.
wife's got me going to a Christmas party tonight.
Okay.
so ever since falling off the ladder, thanks, mate. Ever since falling off the ladder, I've had to do as I'm told.
It'll be a novelty.
Aye.
It'll be a novelty.
Thank you.
Okay,
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Have a great
Thank
Christmas.
you. Aye. I will. I'm the driver because I'm not drinking. Okay.
Okay,
Thanks, Lindsay.
thank you. All right, bye. Next, we have, Dominique, are you willing to, you want to speak or? No, just say a few words. Just support,
Sophie lives.
the same as Lindsay.
Exactly
On the same issues as Lindsay.
Those streets
All
are
right.
very large on a big angle. Nor'easters like just a few days ago, and quite scary.
That would have been fun.
Right, okay, cool, thank you. And so that's the end of the deputations. Petitions, there were no presentation of petitions received. So we move on to staff reports.
Andre, you seen it?
Yeah, I did.
Item number 7, the lease of Road 44 Canada Crescent. And do we have staff on speaking this? Got Angus.
Hello, can you hear me?
Right. You're on, Angus.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I can see myself there on the TV. Look, this is a pretty straightforward matter. We were investigating some of our property ownership in terms of looking forward to the annual plan that's coming up and what properties may or may not be surplus. And we've come across this property in Canada Crescent, which has been occupied by Heinz Pipes. They weren't aware that it was a council-owned property. We weren't aware that we had it there and they were occupying it. It was originally going to vest as road. That's no longer going to happen. So it's sitting there as road reserve under the Reserves Act. We've had a talk to Heinz Pipes. We've come up with a proposal that they lease the land for 5 years. We've got a 6-month termination clause in that lease. They'll pay $39,000 a year in rent. So we're suggesting this is a good interim holding measure, and we will be looking to put that property forward in the annual plan as one that's potentially able to be declared surplus and sold, but that'll be the future decision around May, June next year after consultation. In reaching this point, we've been working closely with our transport team because this is a transport asset. So reasonably straightforward. Happy to answer any questions.
Right, thank you, Angus. I've got Mark who's got a question.
It's not so much a question. I'm really happy to move it.
Okay.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you, Angus.
Okay, moved by Mark, seconded by Sarah. Right. Right, I put it motion. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Angus.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Right.
Right, now we move on to the Quarry View Urban Forest Planting Plan. Got Toby. Welcome, Toby.
Good everyone. I put together a very brief presentation before I came, which we can run through, but it just kind of highlights that this is part of the urban forest planting program. And the trees that the main focus, we went out for a consultation, we got quite a lot of feedback. Pretty much all of the feedback was very positive on the planting, but the division came when it came to the tree removal. So the removal of the trees are those poplars there that you can see from the park. So we had 51 provide feedback, 41 provide feedback, sorry, and 20 people expressed concern about the tree removals. So I will just click through. This is just an overview of the urban forest planting program, which I've come and talked to you about before, but it's about increasing canopy cover across the city and through planting more trees in our park. When we're planting in our parks, we use what we call recession plane modelling. So as if we were building a building, we use the same rules to determine where we plant trees. It doesn't mean we necessarily remove trees that don't abide by this, but it's acknowledging that our planting is increasing quite a bit. So we try and follow these rules to avoid some of the problems that we've currently got with those poplar trees. So consultation went out from the 6th of September to the 6th of October. Our urban forest planting page received 1,200 views during that time and 514 specifically around this reserve. A lot of that was the local people, like residents and things, having a look, but it also had a new feature. So I know quite a few people were jumping in and looking at that thing going back and forth. So it may not be all people relating to the park. We delivered flyers to the properties and there was signage out the front. So Quarry View, if you click again, there might be another picture come up. Yeah. So the picture on the right is the park as it is. The picture on the left is what we're proposing. So quite a considerable new number of plantings. So we're proposing 114 new specimen trees plus around 4,900 square metres of re-veg planting as well. And yeah, there's a little bit about the submissions there again. So the main, I suppose, focus of this is those poplars in the back. There are 38 mature poplars that are proposed to be removed. 20 submissions were highlighted concerns or were against it. The trees overhang the properties on Spalling Road, as you've heard. They're quite large trees, they're poplar trees. We're not proposing to remove any others, we're proposing to remove those. So in the report, so a few things that have come back through the consultation were requests for topping. And in the report, I've highlighted that we don't really like to top trees. If we cut them in half, what will happen is we'll get a lot of new growth really quickly, and that new growth is really weak. So it might alleviate some of the concerns for the first couple of years, but once we start to get year 3, year 4, we'll start to see those things fall apart again, and the problem will just continue. There was another request that we stage the removal. Because these trees have grown in a stand together, they've become reliant on each other, and as we start removing them, we're opening them up to new wind loading, which does start to compromise their structure. The trees have been inspected. We don't have safety concerns that they're going to fall over or anything like that. But if we want to start planting and putting a lot of new trees in, the only way to really get these trees out in an easy, cost-effective fashion is to come through the park. If we go through and we do all of this planting in front of them to replace them, either the planting is going to become damaged or the cost of removal is going to be very, very high. So our staff recommendation is to proceed with the removal of the trees to allow the planting to occur.
Okay. I've got a question, then Mark and then Helen. In your report, you mentioned that as the trees come to the end of their life, their removal will likely result in damage to the new plantings. How many years left before they reach the end of their life?
End of life is really difficult to predict. Poplars are a shorter lived species. I don't know when they were planted, but you know, they may be 15, 20 years before we really start to have issues with them. Yeah, we probably wouldn't let them get to the end of their life. We'd probably wait for something to happen that would make us go, okay, now we need to come and remove them. So we wouldn't let it. End of life is quite a long process. They start to die back in the tips, but as soon as we saw any of those sorts of signs, we would jump in.
Right. Okay, thank you. Mark?
Yes, thank you. Just a quick thought about was it 20 people who were against the removal? Do you know whether they were directly adjacent to the trees or were they further away? Any ideas?
I don't, I highly doubt that any of them were on Spalling Road. Yeah. I don't know exactly where they were. They would have been users of the park and the people who got the litter drops. So they were, I'm sure that at least some of them were people who were adjacent to the park.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Helen,
Yes.
and then Sarah, and then
So
Andre.
in technical terms, Toby, the trees are healthy and could stay.
Yes.
It's just that you want to do more planting, and you need to take the trees out to do the effective new planting.
I think from a management point of view, one day we're going to have to remove the trees. So the trees are a poplar tree. They're not in the best location. They are very large. One day there will be a point where we have to remove them. We've got an opportunity now to replant the park and take that active step now.
Okay.
If it wasn't for the other things coming in, then there's not enough safety concerns for me to say, yes, we have to remove them.
And can I clarify with you, the trees were there, did council acquire the land at some point and the trees were there as a sort of windbreak?
Yeah, I didn't, yeah, they would have been part of a farm block. Before it was subdivided.
Okay.
And they were left as part of that.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sarah?
So Toby, just to confirm that all of the submitters that live on the Spalling Road, they're all opposed, they all would wish to have the trees removed, is that correct?
I believe you had a deputation earlier which raised that was the case. I didn't go through each of the submissions and look at the address and make sure every one of them wanted them removed.
Thanks. Right, thanks, Sarah. Andre, please.
Just on that, the petition we received in August was from, as I understand it, almost every house on Spalling Road, in support of removing the trees. Just a question about the timing of when they would be removed to try and minimise disruption to birds and nesting.
Yeah, so we can talk to our, we've got some really good people in the biodiversity team and that highlight when was the best time to do it.
Yep.
Some of that will also come around our program. If they said, now is the best time, we can't just drop everything and suddenly do it. But yeah, it would be a combination of those things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you, Toby. If I can ask you to.
Yeah.
So do I have a mover and seconder? Moved by Andre, seconded by.
I'll second it.
Helen.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. And mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes. Yeah, in August we had a petition of almost, as I understand, every household on Spalling Road supporting the removal of the trees immediately impacting their property. But these are trees that drop branches over their property, so they are definitely the most impacted. And the staff advice we've got is quite clear that they will need to be removed anyway. So the benefits to keeping them do seem minimal. You definitely acknowledge any concern about the lost canopy cover, but the good news is this plan increases the tree canopy cover at the reserve from 34 to 45%. So in
30 years' time.
well, and point being, it increases tree canopy cover. And the other point being that the trees will need to be removed eventually anyway. Yeah, but I definitely support always putting scrutiny over removing trees when we don't need to be. But we've had, as I say, every household in a street asking us to remove something. And I really can't see it being appropriate to ignore all of them. Is where I am. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to say something? Helen?
Yes, we've had a similar issue a long time ago in Riccarton with poplar trees. It was over a park too, so it was the park, the poplars, and then the houses. And the people were quite concerned at how the trees were functioning, particularly in effect wind. So I'm actually sympathetic for the trees to actually go. They look very, very tall, and I think we're probably best to have them out at this point.
Right. No, anybody else? No? So the recommendation, I will put the motion. All those, what's the recommendation in this one? Approve the planting new trees. Yep, can you put it up on the screen, please? And we'll do it as a block. And so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, thank you. Right, now we move on to the next Upper Riccarton War Memorial Park development. We've got Emily Arthur and Friday is on Zoom, right? And Gata. Right. Welcome.
Thank you. You've all seen the design there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
So yeah, just really here to seek approval for that design, and then also for the for a name. And we heard from Ainsley earlier that she would like to drop Upper, and I think there was a bit of confusion in house about whether that should be included in the name, and we are happy for that to go. Yeah,
that's right.
So you're happy to have the volunteers recognised?
Oh, sorry.
I'm just trying to clarify.
Yeah, no, yeah, I heard Ainsley's thoughts about having a plaque, and we think that sounds like a fantastic idea.
Cool.
We've already got some signage, but I think that is too, they haven't decided yet on what is going to be in the signage, only that it's going to recognise the history of the site, the fallen soldiers, and also the volunteers. So will definitely be, there's quite a bit of money set aside for interpretation of signage around that, but we could also incorporate something into one of the parks. But what I mentioned before about the name was there at the moment in that report it says Upper Riccarton War Memorial Park, but we're happy to change that to Riccarton War Memorial Park.
Yes,
makes good sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yes, you okay with that?
Yeah.
And also those cherries sound great too.
Oh, you're okay with that?
Happy with that.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Good.
Cherry blossom.
Good. Okay. Questions from Sarah and then Mark.
So just on that, you haven't stipulated which type of trees that would be that you,
Yeah, I've spoken to the landscape architect because we actually heard earlier that that was something that the trust was interested in, and so I've spoken to the in-house landscape architect who was happy with that, with those trees. And there's actually three cherry blossoms would be.
Oh, right.
So you can see there's three, I think it's 3 large trees that go through the middle of the park. And then there's lots of shrubs, and then there's a climbing frame. I don't know if anyone's been to the south frame and seen the climbing frame that has native climbers on it. It would be kind of a scaled down version of that. The only other thing really is that we don't currently have funding for the mural, but we've approached Watch the Space, and so they were interested in coming out and having a look at the site. And we would definitely be passing on those ideas the trust has about, what they want in the mural.
Okay.
All right, next, Mark.
Yeah, so that was my question actually about the request for the inclusion of the poppies and the sort of soldiers imagery. If you can incorporate that in the discussion of the mural, that would be, I think, fantastic. It's going to be a fantastic asset, this park, I think.
It should maybe be an opportunity for someone in the trust to be on the selection panel for the mural.
All right, cool. Good. Tyler, you're on.
Kia ora. I just needed to ask this in public. I know we've been talking with some of the team around the back, particularly with Rupert, and I just wanted to ask about the potential of installing a water fountain. It's currently costed around $6,000, and there was talks that it could be installed if the budget allows within that $150,000 budget. Would that sound about right?
Yeah, the $150,000 budget was from the landscape architect did those initial costings. I've since had a quantity surveyor look at it, and it may be a little bit more than that, maybe up, another 20 or 30K, but understand there is funding available for that. And yeah, I think we can incorporate the cost of the fountain into it.
So yeah, and there was a bit of blurred lines. I thought I was meaning a water feature. Yeah, I meant the drinking fountain. So just a heads up.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah. So just wanted to clarify. It's a drinking fountain. There was something that was raised in the submissions, particularly in noting access to a drinking fountain. The other one was public toilets, but that's obviously not feasible. But I was wondering if there may be potential to even have a noting amendment to say, hey, if the budget allows, that staff will implement a drinking fountain in the area too.
All right. You're all done, Tyler?
Yep.
Thanks. Okay. Got Mark again.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. You actually touched on that piece out of the consultation that I picked up was about the public toilets, and I'm guessing that's a bridge too far for this point in the park. But whether that's something we can capture for potential future consideration in that area.
It has been looked into earlier in the year, and they identified a couple of sites that could be options within about 250 to 350 metres of Church Corner.
Yep.
But there is no current funding now for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. No more questions? If I can please ask you to, from the table. And okay. Do I have a mover and seconder?
Yes, I'll move it.
Helen, move.
Can we just, is that moving it with upper Riccarton or just Riccarton?
I think it will be in the recommendations. We'll go one by one.
Well, if the move is happy, we can do it all together, but we're just changing the recommendation to approve the name Riccarton War Memorial Park.
Riccarton.
I like Riccarton, but it doesn't matter. I don't know if it matters too much.
Okay, Sarah?
I guess I don't know who I'm asking this to, but is the other war memorial sites in Riccarton?
No, I don't. Oh,
do we know?
Do we know?
I'm giving a nod.
There is.
There is?
Yeah.
Are there any other?
There's two to three different war memorial sites in Riccarton, but they don't have the label Riccarton. And Upper Riccarton does have a historical context dating back to the 1900s.
I don't mind it.
Upper. Leave it as upper. Debbie?
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I mean, happy either way, but preferable with Upper Riccarton. It clearly identifies where it is. If you name it Riccarton, people are left guessing where it is.
Okay. All right, so we leave it as upper.
It links it well to the old library.
And then how about the recommended design about with the plaque and the trees? Do we include that?
You don't need to make a resolution. So the design has those in there.
Can I just balance the pots a little bit? So from a historical context, Upper Riccarton is dates back to the 1900s, all the way back to, Thomas Kincaid and and the times through the wars, particularly through the 1950s onwards. But at the same time, Riccarton doesn't have a central point for a memorial. So it could actually go both ways, and it'll be worth actually talking about whether you want to make that the center point of Riccarton in terms of the war memorial, or actually having it as an accessory of other war memorials across Riccarton.
we've got Jane Dean's Close has got one, but that came in 1990. So, yeah, I mean, there's a war there for the Second World War, but.
And of course, James Dean Close identifies where it is. James Dean Close. I think it's really important to try and identify it as close to the proximity of where it's actually located. Like James Dean Close, it's clearly there. Upper Riccarton, you know, it's there.
Yeah,
I can see values in both, but it's just the proximity and identifying where it actually is.
Links it well to the old library.
Thank you, Debbie. Sarah?
Is it easy to amend at a later date?
We could always make that decision if we need to.
If we,
You need to make it. Or
It's hard.
I just don't feel like we've got adequate information to be able to make the right decision today, to be honest.
Yeah,
Without,
I don't want to blur the lines. I think Upper Riccarton would stand perfectly fine, given the historical context and the name that we consulted upon.
I moved it.
Well, this is true. We didn't get that far. We went into.
You haven't got a seconder.
So you move, are you moving up or are you moving Riccarton?
Well, I'll move Upper Riccarton as is.
All right,
So I
so
need a
it's
second.
been moved with the name Upper Riccarton War Memorial Park. Any seconder? Hank. All right. Any debate? No, Mark.
Yeah, I really commend staff for their work on this. I think it's a really fitting memorial, this little pocket park, and the way you've included so much of the old library in there, in the way of plaques and signs and all of that, plus the, listening well to the deputation and including cherry trees, I think is magnificent. And I really hope that as this park becomes a reality, that we can have a good conversation with Watch This Space and see if we can't find a way to make that mural happen, and to make it a fitting mural to really help add to the park and memorialise what it is. Having the inclusion of that plaque of the volunteers, I think, is a really nice touch, and it's going to be great to see this landing and having a really nice wee destination pocket park in Upper Riccarton in place of what was, I think, was a treasured War Memorial Library that was there in the day. And it's been a shame to see it have to be demolished due to the earthquake damage, but this park hopefully can go a little way to helping to make up for the loss. So looking forward to seeing this happen. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mark. I've got Tyler and then Helen.
Yeah, I'm absolutely chuffed to see this get across the line. It's crazy how fast local government moves. I remember in 2022, I actually sat down with Matt Pratt, and one of my key election promises was to try and build more parks, because we've got the lowest green space per capita in the city, at only 8 square meters per person in comparison to other places. I'm not going to name drop Andre's ward because he proudly says that it's super green. But when this came across our table, I went a bit of scope across Riccarton, and at the time, the War Memorial Library site was up in air, and the community board have been going through that for many years before my time, and trying to figure out what the future is for the site. And when Matt Pratt said, "Hey, this could potentially be a site, but there's a few hoops you got to jump through," I wanted to take it with 2 horns, and staff have been doing some amazing, phenomenal work around that and introducing me to the right people. Marie Byrne was one of the people who did that quite significantly, and she knows Riccarton more than anyone I know, actually. And when she started talking about it, introducing me to the amazing volunteers at the War Memorial Library, my heart really felt for them. And it was really sad to see them go through the earthquakes and go through all of those things. So the only right thing would be to acknowledge those that came before us and those that sacrificed their lives, and also acknowledge those amazing volunteers that did so much work in that area to hold on to the historical context of Riccarton. And as you can tell, Riccarton's slowly losing its heritage components across the ward, and I'm really happy to acknowledge them and remember the ones that came before us. So I want to thank the board for doing so much work in this space, and also the governance staff. It's been an amazing ride, and thank you so much for getting this across the line, because I'm sure Church Corner residents are going to love it, the shoppers are going to love it, and hopefully there'll be a drinking fountain there once the budget starts rolling through. It'll be really good. Otherwise, here comes a notice of motion. Kia ora.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. Got Helen next.
Yes, I just want to say, I think it's been quite I think this has come about fairly quickly, actually. So I sort of appreciate what staff have done to get this in front of us. I want to acknowledge the volunteers who ran the library and the Anzac services there. And I think they were quite distressed at the time that council got an engineering report and found that the building couldn't really be, in fact, restored easily. So the building had to come down, and it was post-earthquake. So this has come into place, and I think it's excellent. And there was no other option either, because we looked at what could you do with the site. And if we hadn't done this, it would have gone back to the Crown. It was kind of very mixed ownership model. So the only option was for us as a council to use the site as a park or semi-park. So thank you for this, and yeah.
Right, thank you, Helen. So I will got the recommendations up on the screen, and so I'll put the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks. Right, now we move on to item number 10, Mills Road speed humps. Got Andrew Hensley and Nick Reed.
Sure.
Right, welcome. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, questions? Andre?
So what I'm trying to get my head around is at what point this ends up going from a network planning responsibility to now your responsibility. Because the right of way at this intersection was changed without telling anyone, without telling the public, without informing elected members, and sure enough, it's been chaos ever since. And actually in the photo on here, you can see all the skid marks on the intersection. So yeah, a couple of questions is at what point does it go from network planning to yourself? And how was it ever consented in the first place is what the other thing I can't quite figure out.
It goes from network planning to operations when it's out of its liability period. Fixed liability period.
Yeah.
That's my understanding of when it is. But unfortunately, I guess Nick and I weren't involved in that.
Yeah.
At the time of network planning.
Yeah.
And largely we've been undertaking or advocating for remedial works to improve it.
Yeah. In light of that, are any lessons going to have been learned along the way from network planning on how they allowed this to happen in the first place? And it'd also be good to understand, if you know, you might not know, why a roundabout was never considered, or maybe it was considered.
I'm not entirely sure why a roundabout wasn't considered. And it is a frequently raised suggestion or recommendation, I guess, both in particular from the community. No, I can't answer that because I wasn't there at the time, unfortunately.
That's all right. So there's more development to come. Will there be any opportunity as part of any future conditions of consent for more works to be done around here, or will it all have to come down to operations?
I think that is a question for network planning.
Cool.
But if it wasn't able to be funded through developer contribution, it would actually have to come out of long-term plan, I understand. As a separate project.
Well, which would be nice. Cool. The other issue is visibility. Visibility is still really poor, particularly with the plantings on William Britton. Do you have any thoughts around that? It's something I've sent on a number of times, but they've only ever really been trimmed a little bit. And there's speed bumps there now, the plastic ones, but you'll hear, skidding and near misses all the time, even with speed bumps. So
it's it's one of those sites where as time goes on and the site is developed further, it will reinforce itself just by way of that natural increase in usage. I'd suggest that the asphalt speed humps will have more presence to them.
My question is more around visibility. So I haven't had a huge amount of luck getting the visibility improved with those plantings on William Britton Ave. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts around that, because the visibility is terrible. If you're trying to look both ways and you're trying to look past plants, it's not that easy.
Yeah, we can discuss that with maintenance.
Yeah, cool. Because
there's been work done.
Yeah,
we've done previously.
Yeah, there's been some, like the big sign and stuff's been moved, but in terms of the plantings, I've reported a few times, there hasn't really been much change. So I feel like maybe that is something that needs to come from traffic engineers.
It is a balance though between unduly opening up the intersection of being counterproductive. So if the visibility is opened up too much, we'd expect that there would be an increase in operating speeds, even with those speed humps probably, or even cars that go straight through or take more risk taking. So often vegetation is our friend to improve safety. But it does get to a point where it can be counterproductive and difficult too. So I think I'm happy to go out and we can have a look at that again and to see how that would.
I guess just my concern is we've got bumps currently, but there's still near misses all the time. And it sort of feels like, well, this can't be the end of what we're doing at this intersection because the status quo is just not working. So any consideration around that I think would be useful. Just the other question is reasoning for both sides of the road for the speed hump to cover rather than just the approach.
Sorry. Well, it's both approaches, isn't it? Yeah. So it covers both legs.
And the other side.
Yeah, and the other side. So there's also the issues of vehicles that can accelerate away. So it does have the benefit of. That's typically what we do is cover those both approaches.
I think it's also mentioned in the report about by having it on both sides, it stops people going around the speed humps. So I think that's fair enough. Because people do that regularly.
So that has been an issue that's been reported as vehicles. I think trying to avoid them on both sides, both on the shoulder and also on the incorrect side of the road. But put them across, it does actually have that benefit of covering both sides of the intersection, both approach and departure.
One more question: have you ever seen the right of way to intersection change completely without the public being notified? Because I certainly haven't, but I'm just keen to know if you have.
In Banks Peninsula, I have come across situations that are of a safety concern, such as things that are technically uncontrolled intersections where, as a safety measure, I put in controls, but they were formalised through the board later. And were approved by the board. And there was an understanding of the rationale as to why it was done at the time. But other than that, I can't think of any others apart from say temporary traffic management or perhaps through subdivision or something.
And is this, sorry, last one, is this unable to be funded through DCs? What we're doing here?
We'd have to double check that. It was, I guess, put to minority safety because maintenance are coming in January and it was all done quite last minute, but we'll ask the question.
I mean, it's purely as a result of development. So for it not to be utilised in DCs and eating out of our safety budget, it doesn't seem appropriate. I wouldn't have thought.
You could use that like minor road safety to do something like that.
Well, so, cool, thank you.
Right. Any other questions? No.
So I'd like to just add a couple of amendments, I think. Sorry, just give me one sec. I'd like us to seek an explanation from network planning as to why they deemed it appropriate to change the right of way at an intersection without notifying the board or the public.
Repeat that. Seek advice.
Yeah.
Seek advice, staff advice.
From specifically.
From network planning.
Yeah.
From network planning staff on.
Seek advice.
Staff advice, I'll take that.
Oh, yeah, no,
Seek
either
advice
or,
from
either
network
or.
planning
either or.
staff as to
Yeah, as to why they deemed it appropriate to change the right of way at an intersection without notifying the board or the public. And maybe just a number 6 notes that staff will seek advice on development contributions to fund this. Yeah.
Is that on where they're going, you mean, that last one?
Well, on how these are funded. So instead of coming out of minor safety program budget, this is purely because of new development going in the road change. Yeah.
I used to fund this.
Yeah, and so
seek advice from the staff. Where we wording
that's why intersection with that.
This bit.
On the mill.
Regarding the notification process.
For changes to mills,
road layout
So this intersection.
regarding notification.
Notification and approval.
And approval process.
I think so, because technically those giveaways should have been resolved by the community.
Yeah.
Without throwing them under the bus.
Yeah, so we'll go notification and approval process.
Yeah. It was overnight with no one having any clue.
Intersection?
William Britton.
Well, yeah, that was the thing people have been using for 60 years, and then you haven't, no one's told you, and then you show up and it's different. It's not hard to see how this has been a disaster.
Is that, are you okay with that?
Britton, Brittan.
Speed cushion. Is it only on one side? It's only on one.
Yep, that'll be fine. And maybe, sorry, just to add to it, as well as advice on when responsibility moves from network planning to operations. Well, for our knowledge will be useful because there's so many more works to come around here in the future.
As 6, yeah, because it's separate. It might go to different people, just logistically.
Yeah.
When the responsibility moves from network planning to operations. Kind of.
Yeah, so you happy with the speed hump?
Well, here, yes.
Andre's moving there.
We've divided on that.
I can see it.
Yeah, so Andre's moving 1 to 7. And we need a second of that.
So we need them off the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, so now Andre has moved the amended, I'll move the recommendations.
The amend, it would be the amended.
Including.
Including the
amendments.
yeah.
Yep. And any seconder?
If you need one.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Helen. All right, cool. Any debate necessary? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Next item.
And number 11, our favorite.
Oh, yeah.
We've got Gemma.
Kia ora.
Hello, Gemma.
Welcome back. Nice to
Yeah.
be back.
Yeah.
I will take the report as read. Any questions?
And hang on. Questions
Yes,
first?
questions.
Helen.
I recall that the difficult meeting we had on this, and I don't even recall these items being discussed, but I think they were. I'm still struggling. What was the reason for having these 3 bumps outside Woolworths?
Yeah, so there are 3, I guess, reasons why noted in the current report.
Right.
And that was to reduce it from 2 lanes to 1. So anyone that was wanting to go down Main South Road has to do positive movement and use the indicator. And we have seen improvements in that. So then when you're turning right out of Main South Road, that you understand where that person's coming from and going to.
Okay.
There was also the people cycling. So it reduced it so that we could provide a cycle lane, and it reduced the amount of space within the road, I guess, the exposure for a cyclist to be hit. And also there's quite a strong demand of people crossing between Countdown Car Park and Church Corner Mall. And I guess reducing it from 2 lanes to 1, reduce the exposure for people crossing, because there's quite a lot of old people that take their time to cross there as well. So that was the reason the 3 were put in.
Okay.
Obviously, it's been a bit like Marmite. People have either liked it or they've not. And in looking at the feedback from the recent consultation, it was possible to look at it holistically. So we've got the Safe Speed platform, so that speeds, as you come out of the Hanson's intersection, you don't try and floor it through that part, which means that the people crossing the road get the benefit of the slower speed, that the cyclists get the benefit of the slower speed, and you get the 2 lanes back as well. So people can either go left or right.
Okay. So the issue I've heard from people and being down to look is that cars have to pull over because of the humps, and then they go down that Main South Road.
Yeah, so
so they're going that way and then they turn back.
Yes. I guess it's slightly different because there is a kind of a strong left turn demand in terms of merging. People have to do it going eastbound outside Bush Inn. There's just no islands there to kind of encourage you to move over quicker.
Okay.
But yeah, because there is that higher left turn demand, I think people have been a bit miffed about the fact that you have to merge into one to then indicate left. So we've tried to address that in that updated plan.
All right, thank you, Helen. Mark and then Andre.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this to us so quickly.
It's a long day.
We're good to get this finished before the end of the year. It'd be great.
I just want a nice Christmas holiday.
One thing I still haven't quite got clear in my mind is whether there is the ability on this plan here to just have the cycle marking on that hatching and it gets put in.
Yeah, so it was removed following, I guess, concerns raised by Councillor Harrison Hunt and Greater Autotahi. So there will be confident cyclists that will continue along Yolthurst Road. And I guess having the Safe Speed platform at that decision point means that people are going that little bit slower, so that confident cyclists will turn, look, and then move over. So they've got the advanced cycle stop line at the lights. But really, I think that was the concern, that we don't necessarily want people to do that through kind of a long right lane and a long left lane, because you will feel quite exposed. So we looked at it with spokes as well, that as a personal bicycle, you'll turn down Main South Road, hook up onto the shared path, and then you can use the crossing to get across.
Very good. The other question is around the exit point from the Woolworths right there.
Yes.
There's people that get jumped straight across the lanes. Is there any thought to putting some temporary dividers or plastic dividers down the middle to try and train them not to do that, and actually they can head down Main South and around?
Yeah, so I guess we took it out of this conversation a little bit just to focus on the main safety issue at Main South Road. But it is something that we'll have to talk to Countdown about, because it would be quite a different I guess, arrangement for them. So I don't think what we're putting in now would prohibit any future change. We can monitor it post-implementation, see how it goes, and then if need be, we can always come back
Yep.
and have that chat with Woolworths.
Excellent. As we could also come back, I guess, if we see the crossing of the islands in inappropriate places happening, fences could be a thought down the track. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Keen to move this one, Rudy.
Oh, yeah, we've got a few more questions. I've got Andre and then Sarah.
No further questions.
No further questions, Sarah.
On attachment B, so the orange island that's outside of the car park. See, there's two cycle in the bottom right corner.
Down at the bus stop.
Yeah, so that one's out of the main lane of traffic. So we were just going to keep that one there because it does stop vehicles cutting short. So
Is that a new one that was implemented
It has
after?
been implemented.
Okay, so it's only the three.
Yep.
Yes, so
That
that
have
little
been-
one will just stay because it's not in the line of traffic.
Okay, okay, and you're confident that the other one, just to clarify, because we overlooked it in the past, that one is beneficial and is not causing any issues?
Correct.
Okay.
It's the three that are in the main path that are closest to people.
So anything else? No more questions, no further questions? Thank you, Gemma.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma.
And so we've got Mark moving this and Hank seconding.
With pleasure.
Absolutely.
And do we have any debate? Or I should put it to motion? Oh, no, debate,
Yep.
right.
I'll just do a quick debate. Hey, I'd really like to thank Gemma for bringing this to us as quickly as she has after the council decision on Church Corner. And it's, sort of on the back of the notice of motion that we had at the previous meeting, this is kind of the answer to the advice. We're getting it done. So, thank you so much for getting this here to us, and really pleased to have this, to restore some sanity to this situation that's been catching a lot of motorists out. The number of times any of us have been down to that corner and seen people suddenly have to change lane because they've seen them, and then, oh, I'm turning left now anyway. So the one beneficial thing I have seen it do, and I suspect the traffic staff probably found this as well, is that people did tend to indicate once they got out into that lane. So it did actually serve a little bit of a purpose in that sense. So, but in saying that, it's good to have Church Corner settled. It's been a long year, and I'm keen to see this, it's constructed, tucked into bed, and all done. So thank you.
Isn't that a very fast speed?
It's been a long year.
Can I just ask a quick question? Just to clarify, I don't have the map in front of me, but it is removing the 3 concrete.
Yes, it is.
Yep, lovely.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Okay, right. Anybody else? So put this in motion. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? No, carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, team.
So we move on to item number 12, and Mark has declared an interest in this,
In that one item.
in the whole of item 12, or just
just that one.
the Hornby Daycare Trust?
No, the
Oh,
Hornby
no, which
Presbyterian.
one? Presbyterian Community Church.
Split off number 1.
I will support everything else.
I'm happy to move all.
You're happy to move all, seconded by Sarah. Right. No questions? Questions?
What's number 1 though?
Oh, okay, Sarah.
I'm just talking about Mark. Do you want to split off? Do it separately?
We can note it as a
Yeah.
conflict of interest in the minutes, but
Yep. You can note that I sat back for the
Yeah.
second.
Okay. Well, good. Thank you, Marie.
That was easy.
Yeah, very quick.
I'll put the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. And item number 13, DRF.
Happy to move that.
Okay, moved by Mark and seconded by Andre. Anything else? No, thank you, Marie. Right, I'll put the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. And item number 14, now we go to the the board recess committee. Bailey, you want to?
Yeah, so that's just putting in place a recess committee until the 30th. We hope we don't need to use this. We don't have any plans to have a meeting before then. But yeah, just in case there was an emergency where we needed to have a meeting or something last minute came that we needed approval.
Happy to be part of that.
That's not native.
Yeah.
So we don't actually have to name who will be on it. It's just
cool.
Yeah.
Minimum of 3 is quorum.
Yeah.
Minimum of 3 quorum.
And if you're all available, then you all would be able to come.
Welcome.
In that case, have to move.
Right, moved by Andre, seconded by Mark. I'll put the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Oh, we're early for the board area report. Bailey, Ken.
Yeah, I'll take this as read, and if you have questions, I will do my best.
Any questions? No, no questions? Can I have a mover?
Actually, I suppose could I say one quick
All
question?
right, question.
It was interesting to see that you didn't get a chance to present the previous area report at council. It's something we.
Oh, the board
sometimes have.
presentations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, February.
You could just present 2 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good.
And that was just because of what your
The
agenda.
full agenda. Yeah. So we were told that community boards will not be presenting at the last meeting.
And because of this period, our next area report likely will be lighter.
Yep.
So it works out. Okay.
Right.
Actually, one other quick question. Waipuna Park tree planting plan.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know where that is at? Having been consulted, is that sort of perhaps sitting in abeyance at the moment?
I will get an update and let you know.
That would be useful.
That likely could come through tomorrow. It's easy.
Yep.
Well, so the issues around Plan Change 14, which were discussed on the 2nd of December, you don't put that in your report. No, because it's council, is it? Is that the reason?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So there's an effect on the community, but it's a council document. Like, yeah. Okay.
Right. No more questions?
One more question. The Oakhampton Reserve, it was mentioned about cleaning up and the likes. Is that something as a board we could be made aware of to make sure that we have the opportunity to take as well? Because that's quite an interesting local one for us. Thank you.
Right. No further questions? Right. And mover, Sarah, second,
Abby.
Mark. And I will put the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Now we have the elected members information exchange. Just a reminder that this doesn't include CSR's actions or resolutions. All right. So it's just updates and report backs. Oh. Tyler, we've got Tyler, and then Helen. I think Tyler has a presentation, right?
Yep. I'm just wanting to show you the PowerPoint presentation when you guys pop it up. Oh, cool. Thanks. So this here is Nelson Street in Riccarton. It's actually right across the road from the service centre. The current residents on Nelson Street have been a bit, well, not a bit, they've been quite grumpy about the prevalence of buses utilising that space and parking, while also keeping their motors on, the engines on, and the air conditioning on, while the people on board have been moving to the restaurants across the road. If you go through to some other ones, you see that they're illegally parking here. And again, and again. There's multiple parts where buses are overutilizing Nelson Street. And I do realize that there are limited parks in Riccarton, particularly around Picton Ave, Peveril Street, and etc. And Nelson Street tends to be the place that everyone wants to go to find a good park. However, with the prevalence of illegal parking, particularly parking horizontally over vertical car parks, it's become quite a significant issue for a lot of residents, particularly the local residents, and the noise that's coming from the engines. Now, I've talked to traffic about it, and Andrew Hensley's gone to talk to the business owners about some of these issues. However, under our current bylaws, parking bylaws, the signage that is proposed to be put onto those lampposts aren't there because it's not against the law. Even though they are illegally parking, they can be actually pinged for it, but it doesn't stop the buses from not parking on the road. So just letting everyone know and wanting to let staff know, I know these aren't action points, but there is probably going to be some residents coming to the community board in our next meeting to bring this up. I'm trying to do things internally to try and put some signs up around ensuring that buses keep their engines off and they're actually parking legally, and also trying to get more enforcement around this area because it's actually getting pretty out of hand, particularly during the summer seasons off the cruise ships. So they tend to go to the Korean restaurants and the Chinese restaurants across the road. So that's just a heads up. In terms of the rest of Riccarton, I'm sure Helen's going to talk about PC14, so I won't need to talk about that too much. But graffiti and waste have been quite a significant part in what's been going on over the last month. And I was actually reflecting on the last ticket report, and graffiti and waste are almost 3-4 times more prevalent than the rest of the wards that we've got. And it continues to be a big issue. So I'm just trying to figure out with the team about how I'm supposed to be working that out. And that's pretty much it. That's all in all.
All right, thank you, Tyler. I've got Helen and then Hank.
Yes, on the 2nd of December, Council held its meeting on Plan Change 14 and passed a number of resolutions. I'll get Mark perhaps talk about the Hornby ones, which he was able to get through. But in Riccarton, there were two main topics, or perhaps more than two, but the two main ones from my perspective were the Matto Street cycleway, which got through unexpectedly in a way. And the second one was the zoning, the Riccarton Bush qualifying matter.
Can you please clarify which went through? You said approved?
Both
went to the minister.
Both went through council. Yes.
Approved by council.
Approved by council. But there does seem to be confusion, or I have, and I've asked Bailey and we've got answers back, but I'm still not clear. The Riccarton Bush qualifying matter is approved to go to the minister. So council is recommending that, which is good.
Which I sat back from.
On the other hand, there seems to have been another resolution that I'm struggling to find, but I'll get help from Bailey, and that is that the area on the other side of Riccarton Road, round Riccarton Bush, is zoned medium density. And that's the bit I don't fully understand. So it seems like it's positive going to the minister, but at the same time, it's rezoned medium density, which people wouldn't expect. I to some extent have some awareness that staff wanted medium density, but I wasn't aware that it had been carried by council. So I'll check further on that. So there's probably good news in one way and bad news in sort of another. Antonio Hall is to be demolished. That was through Tyler, and also Pico and Shand Crescent had their heritage status removed, and that's probably fine too. So that and Tyler may want to comment further, but we've still got this outstanding issue: is the other side of Riccarton Road zone medium density, and when does that start? Is it now, or is it if the minister approves the qualifying matter. I'm not clear, and I've asked questions, and I'm still not clear on it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Got Hank?
I was going to ask a question on Tyler, but yeah, just about the clarification of this bus parking business. You've confused me. You say it's legal for the bus to park. It's easy done. It's legal for the bus to park across the car parks. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so it's legal for them to park. It's not legal for them to park cross car parks, but it's legal for them to park on the off street parking. So like there's certain areas that don't have cross parks in them, but they've just got like designations.
Yep.
And the problem is that there's a lack of enforcement around there.
Sure.
And
that's fine. Yeah, I'll follow that.
Yeah,
it's been
a
under
bit
a long
of
time,
bugger.
Tyler. I think.
Yeah. And in regards to PC14, Helen, so the recommendation was that the Riccarton Bush qualifying matter gets pushed through, and then to my understanding, it goes back to status quo if it was turned down. And the rules were you had to come up if you were going to reject the IHP recommendation, then you had to come up with an alternative resolution, and that was the alternative resolution
To make it medium density.
to put it back to what the IHP have recommended if it was rejected. The other option was to go back to the staff reply. But anyway, we can talk about that offline. That's no worries. But it's definitely of community interest for sure.
Right. Thank you, Tyler. Just quickly, I think Mark and so just to report back, I think last week we have completed all the community service awards and youth service awards finally. Thank you to staff who did all the preparations for that, and the citations were greatly written. So the certificates and all, and in the new year, I believe we are going to get a report back from staff about the outcome of us going out to the community, presenting this service awards, right? Okay, Mark.
Yeah, I guess following on from the PC14 update from Helen, we did have some success in Hornby, in the fact that we managed to get the alternate recommendations through for limiting the height of the commercial zone.
But it's still up to the minister.
It is still up to the minister. That's about where I was going to get to that. So the recommendation we've sent to the minister was for the Hornby town centre zone to have 22 metres instead of 32, which means 6 metres instead of 6 stories instead of 10 stories. And for the good people of Hornby, I'm sure we can all fondly remember a building that used to be in our town centre, which was the old clock tower, which was of that magnitude. So we've managed to bring some sanity from, rather than an extra 4 stories, we're about the same as the clock tower at 6. So that gives us a bit of a perspective on what the recommendations going to the minister entails. So hopefully the minister will look favourably on that, because we know our communities and we recommend what our communities could potentially live with. I don't say enjoy, but they might potentially live with. Then in the high density zone around Hornby town centre, we managed to peg it back a couple of blocks from Neil Street back to Brimley, Oakhampton, halfway between, and also shorten up the reach down Amy's Road a wee bit. So that recommendation will go to the minister. And then the heights in that high density zone, we recommended 12 metres, which is the same as is currently allowed under the planning rules. So we couldn't go any lower than that, because the Waipuna High Court decision limited quite clearly that we couldn't reach and impede on the current enabled rules. So we could only go as far as that, which was 12 metres instead of 14. So that should mean potentially 3 as a maximum instead of 4 stories. So we can only hope now with that PC14 that the minister can listen and understand that we know our communities, and hopefully he'll confirm what we need. And then aside from that, it's been an interesting topic today, having so much talk about trees. It's been really good to see the Denton Park trees, the cedar trees come down. I've had nothing but blame from the neighbours there. They're all absolutely amazed at how much extra light they've got in their homes. And they're really looking forward to not having to have to clean out the gutters quite as regularly, not have the pollen problems they've had with their heat pumps and with their health. And then I think we're all keen to see when that tree planting actually happens to replace them, to see that those extra trees get planted and to establish themselves. And over time, we're going to have a much better environment in there, which is going to be really enjoyed.
It certainly put a lot of daylight into their houses, isn't it?
It has. I've had so many messages to say that it's great to hear. It's been a bit of a journey to get to this, but thanks to the team, all of us, for persisting in this, and thanks to Toby and his team as well. It's been good to get this landed. Further to that, the way of trees, I've had more residents contacting me in the last week with trees. I've had another one in Templeton Domain who's had a very large, I think it's about 118-year-old oak tree or something like that. They were previously, the arborist had been out and trimmed it. And in the really strong nor'westers we had earlier this week, they had branches and limbs landing on their roof again, damaging their home. So I've got a call on that. I've now got the arboricultural team having a look at that and seeing what we can do. And then there's another one that's cropped up is Leslie Park on Foreman's Road.
I know Leslie Park.
Yeah, so they've got rather old.
It's been there a long time.
50 years plus. Right. Pine or some sort of pine trees on there. And they do a lot of debris into the neighbouring properties across the road and around the area. So
they're conifers, aren't
they? Some sort of.
I think they are.
So they're an exotic species. And they're well established. They're nice looking trees. They too also suffer wind damage from time to time. So I've referred that to the arboricultural team as well. And it'll be good to get an update from Toby and the team as to what the plan is for Leslie Park, and is there a urban forest tree planting plan due for that location, because that could be a good time for us to ask some questions around those trees. Do they need renewal as well? So it's good to see that in places we can get some happening of trees, because as we heard Toby tonight, he said that trees do come to an end of life. They're not there forever, sort of thing. So we will keep working with the arboricultural team and do what we need to do as we can. The other thing, I guess, to bring up is I'm surprised Hank didn't do this. 126 on the corner have a carol service tomorrow night. So I'm sure we're all invited. It's always a really joyous occasion at Christmas. To see that community come together and celebrate is really quite magical.
Yeah, it's quite fun.
Yep. And you might see a couple of puppets, I think I've heard.
You're right. 3 actually.
So there might be a couple of hands of a certain member here who's potentially busy operating some puppets. So come along if you can. It's always a great occasion. Otherwise, hey, let's all have a good Christmas. Let's all put the year that we've had behind us and move forward into 2025 and see what that can bring for us all. And all those people out there in TV land as well, have a good Christmas and stay safe and have a happy new year as well.
Right. Thank you, Mark. I've got Andre. Thanks.
Yeah, just on PC14, one of the things that everyone from all sides of the debate agreed on was allowing more housing around the central city area. Council actually voted to do the opposite and decided not to allow more housing around the central city area, namely around sort of between Merivale, Victoria Street, and between Morehouse and Brian Street. So what it will mean is that more intensification gets pushed out into the suburbs, which goes against what everyone has been talking about in the first place. So I think it's really hard to expect the minister to take our council seriously when we go and make stupid decisions like that. But that's all from me. Merry Christmas.
All right, Helen?
Yeah, can I just comment on that? Sure. I think the issue was that the councillor who moved that talked about a walkable catchment and then the Sydenham development. And I think if those had been separated, she would have got the Sydenham housing through. It's the walkable catchment, because what had happened in one of the rounds on Plan Change 14 is that the 4 avenues used to be the dividing line for the central city. And somewhere along the way, it became very fuzzy. And a lot of people objected to that. And the panel, for one thing the panel agreed on, that it should be the 4 avenues. So Deans Avenue precinct had been up in arms because when it was a fuzzy boundary, the walkable catchment, their height went to 10 stories suddenly.
Well,
and so they were really upset at the time. I'm talking about 6 months ago. Yeah.
Well, what you've ended up with is a 0 metre walking catchment for somewhere like Victoria Street, but big walking catchments around areas like Riccarton. So it will push more density towards the suburbs and less density around the central city area. Yeah. Well, it will, because you can't build up around those central city areas.
But you've got a lot of area in central city behind the actual Anglican cathedral.
And you've got a lot of area here that we could have enabled for housing, but we didn't. And it will mean more density in the suburbs. It's
I don't know, because you've got all this area here is higher density.
Yeah. And around and areas around central city will not be. And I think that's nuts.
Because
we voted against it.
Well,
take it offline.
No discussion, that's what's happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to join in with this thing here, because I was just going to say.
We can take it offline?
Yep, we can.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we will do our closing karakia. Unihia, Deulo Tapanui, Kia Watia, Kia Mama, Te Tako, Te Tinana, Te Wairua, I Te Ara Takata, Poera, Eromo, Whakairia, Akikihuna, Kia Tina, Ure, Taike. Merry Christmas to all, and thank you. Close the meeting. And we are.